You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the Chleirigh.
And me, Paul Brophy, and we're delighted to be joined, Roisin, by our American correspondent, DeRito.
DeRito, you're very welcome to Ireland. Céad míle fáilte. Did I say that properly?
You didn't do that.
Oh, yes, I know.
Well, Roisin, it's a pleasure to be here with you and Paul today. I'm so glad that I don't have to do this across, on a distant podcasting platform, but it's so great to actually be in Ireland and be here at Trump Doonbeg and really talk about to one of our greatest allies here in the United States.
And it's great to actually have this opportunity to drive down, for you to actually fly in today, this evening, and do this interview, and then you're flying back out again tomorrow.
Yep.
But we're here in Trump Doonbeg and right on the ocean. And have you seen the ocean yet?
I did. I actually jumped into the ocean previously when I was in Iowa a couple days ago. It's nice and cold the way it should be. It's very rejuvenating.
So Adam, you've been over here in Ireland, England, and in the north of Ireland. So I'm curious. Originally you came over for the Oasis concert, and then you've stayed and you've travelled around. So tell us about what your thoughts and opinions are of Ireland.
So this is fascinating to me. Yes, I was here for the Oasis concert, once in a lifetime opportunity. One of my favorite bands growing up, and that was great. That was only the first 2 days of my trip. Since then, I decided to take some time and get to know what's really going on in Europe, because what I think Americans fail to understand is what's really going on across the ocean. We hear bits and pieces, we hear deciphering what's really going on in the media, but as a person who's worked in intelligence and as someone who's worked in Army Special Operations for over 10 years now, what really matters is the opinion of the people on the ground and what's really going on. So I spent time in Dublin, and then I went to Glasgow, and then I went to Galway, and then I went down to the Cliffs of Moher. I did some little sightseeing there, but really talking to the local fishermen, the local industry people, the people working here. Those are the opinions of the people that matter. Who is running the city? Who is controlling the infrastructure? Where are the jobs coming from? And what are the actual internal conflicts? Because, how much can we actually trust politicians and what they say and what the media says? And as I've been traveling around, especially when I went to Northern Ireland the last 3 days, it's been such an enlightening experience to understand.
And that's where I'm from.
Yes, as you told me.
Yeah, so I'm a Derry woman. So original Derry woman too. But so let's start. You arrive in Dublin. Let's start with Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts and your perspectives and your opinions now of what you saw, heard, and observed in Dublin?
So what I see in Dublin is a very big parallel to what I've seen in New York City or Chicago. It needs help. Dublin, used to be a center of mercantile and industry and trade, and now what you're seeing is a massive influx of illegal migrants and migrant workers and everything else, and they're destroying your city. I mean, there are human excrement on the ground everywhere. There's trash and garbage everywhere. And granted, I was there during a concert time, so there's more people there. But Dublin is a beautiful, ornate city that has such a rich history into it. And to watch the people of Dublin struggling to try to go to work every day and trying to go through the pollution and everything else is very similar to what was going on in New York City, especially post-COVID, where we had a lot of drug use, gangs, and everything else traversing the city. And New York City used to be like a relatively safe city, especially after post-9/11, after Mayor Rudy Giuliani cleaned up the city after all the murders in the 70s and the 80s. But you're starting to see this resurgence of some of the most iconic cities in the world, Dublin, New York City, are being destroyed, and it's taking away your culture and what your people really stand for.
So it's just becoming like another international city.
Yeah.
You're not coming, if you come to Dublin, and experience the Céad míle fáilte and the Irish culture.
Right, I agree. And it's something that I think the Irish people are starting to fear. I talk to a lot of people on the ground, is that they're losing their Gaelic culture, or they're losing their history, where their families came from, and they've grown up in that city hundreds of years. I mean, Dublin's way older than New York City or any of the cities in the United States, right? But I can see that the destruction of statues or the spray painting of political buildings, and some of your buildings are just massively ornate and gorgeous. Like the craftsmen in some of the bars I was in. Some of that woodwork is hundreds of years old, built by Irish. Where are these Irish workers anymore? You don't see that type of craftsmanship in industry anymore today, and it's very tragic.
And what were you were talking to an awful lot of young people in Dublin. What were the young people in Dublin telling you?
I think that the young people in Dublin are very disillusioned to what's going on in the world. I think there's a sense of hopelessness. I think, from where their parents grew up, the troubles and everything else, moving into that region, is that information wasn't transferred appropriately into their generation. And I think because the young people of Dublin and in Ireland are seeing this, well, there's a lot of migrants in here, or we don't have enough jobs, or I can't afford an apartment, or I can't afford to live here, I just want to go to Australia. I just want to leave. I want to leave my native land. And you don't see a lot of that in the United States, right? There's more opportunity in the United States for jobs and making money and everything else. But what I see the youth is that they become disaffected. And in civil affairs, we talk about three main things in the Army: what can destabilize a country and cause civil war. And that is lack of food, lack of water, lack of electricity, and infrastructure, right? So when you don't have enough jobs, you don't have enough housing, you can't even clean your own wastewater, and the young people can't even afford to live anywhere, what are they going to do? They're going to start to side with ideology that they think is revolutionary in their mind. And one of the most dangerous prospects I've seen since I've been in Ireland is that the youth is very concentrated on international conflicts in places they've never been. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. Now, unless you served in the Irish Defence Forces or the British Army or something like that, and you've been to the Middle East or you've been to places like I have been, you have a much different perspective when you've been on the ground. You have a much different perspective of what's going on in Gaza and Israel, or Ukraine, Russia, or the Middle East. And I see a lot of these youth are being manipulated by the Irish media or by the American media and being told that they need to sympathize with this group or this group because that's going to help bring you to greatness. Is it really, though? Because you're trying to pay for an apartment here in Dublin, but you're more concerned about a conflict in Palestine/Israel in that West Bank region that you will never visit. You will never go there, right? So why are you more concerned about a struggle of a people you can't possibly understand when you can't understand what's going on down the street, right? And you're more worried about something that is not going to affect you directly. And this is the same problem with Americans as well. There's a lot of disaffected Americans who think that international struggle is more important than what's going on in their hometown. You're not showing up to your own town halls to raise your taxes and pave your roads, but you have a Ukrainian flag hanging outside your house. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why don't you worry about what's happening on here? And as soon as you can fix the issues and save your own country and your culture and what matters to you, then you could start worrying, or go join the military if you really want to go travel overseas and do these things, right? What the youth is being disaffected with is a dangerous radicalization which could lead to more issues, which your country has seen in the past 30, 40 years.
So you also then travelled up to Belfast.
I did.
Tell us about your experience, what you saw and what you heard from American perspective being in the north.
So Belfast is a fascinating area because Belfast in the early 1900s was the iconic pinnacle of industry. And they built the Titanic. They built all these amazing, gorgeous ships. They were the lead worlding linen producers
Yes.
in the world. Nobody,
There's no linen left,
nobody had clothes or anything unless they were Irish made, right? And they were made on this island here. And that is a very capitalistic view of what Belfast was in the 1900s, where everybody worked in the shipyards or supported the industries that supported the shipyards. Everybody had jobs. Everybody was able to support their families. They had housing. They had higher wages than most of the people around the area. And they had such Irish pride in what they were doing, and they were able to stamp "Made in Ireland" on everything. Kind of like the way the United States was during our Industrial Revolution as well. But now it's a museum. Now it's a remnant of what was, not what is now.
And all the
right?
craftsmanship.
And all the craftsmanship is gone.
Expertise.
Right, the crystal making in Glasgow and everything else, right?
Well, Waterford Crystal was just down the road from us in Kilkenny,
That's
and
right.
so that closed down, and it's gone to
Czech Republic, I think, Roisin.
yeah.
Or even China. You
China.
know what I mean? All these things are mass produced in China.
China.
There's no pride in what's being done here in Ireland. And what's terrifying is that the youth and the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of all these men and women that worked in these industries, the trades have gone away. And now the youth, they just want to go to Australia. They want to go somewhere else where there's more opportunity versus trying to fix what already exists in Ireland. You have so much pride in what you used to do, but why don't you have some pride in what you should be doing now, right? It is up to the next generation to carry on the pride of a country and move it forward. And it's the same issues we deal with in the United States. They think, because the Rockefellers built New York City, that we should just live on the accomplishments of men that lived 100 years before us. But that's not necessarily the case. And in Ireland, it's so much older than the United States is that they should have such a more concrete understanding of how important it is to save your culture and save the industries that built your country in the first place.
Adam, an awful lot of the Irish political establishments, the political elite, the media and NGOs would say, oh, Ireland is a very multicultural, gave me a vulture to everyone. We are a multicultural country, we're very liberal and progressive. Yeah,
it sounds great until you see what's happened to your country. I mean, we had a lot of the same ideologies when the Democratic Party was running our country under Joe Biden. And we see the fallout of that. We saw a loss of American culture, a loss of American industry, especially in a post-COVID environment. But Americans have been very active in reversing that as fast as possible under the presidency of Donald Trump, whether it's through executive orders or everything else. And yeah, it's been extreme. It's been one heck of a ride for the last several months. But we're bringing our country back to where it used to be. We're even trying to reindustrialize the United States, right? We're trying to build more industries back because we had the same problem. We got rid of a lot of industry. We sold everything off to China, right? And Ireland, I think, is experiencing the same thing. But the problem is, from what I've seen from the minimal interactions I've had with your politicians and the people that know them, is that they just want to please everybody.
And when you please everybody, you please nobody.
Exactly. When you please everybody, you please nobody, right? They're more concerned about staying in power or upstanding the system that's existed for X amount of years for them. They don't want to offend anybody, but you can't satisfy everybody, right? I mean, if you can agree with at least 50% of the population, you're winning. Right? Even Donald Trump can't get over 50% to agree with him at certain points on certain things. But that is what is necessary to run a society. Winston Churchill once famously said, if you think democracy works, talk to a normal voter for 5 minutes. Right? Because most average voters are not well educated. They don't understand what's really going on. And it takes strong leaders to make hard decisions that maybe some people don't agree with in order to benefit the entirety of a country. And what I'm seeing here is your loss of industry, your loss of hope with your youth, which is your future. Your children are the future of your country. We're all not going to be here around here forever, right? One day I'm going to die, you're going to die, and who's going to be left is who we leave on this earth. And if they are in this mindset of I don't have to work, I don't have to learn how to do amazing craftsmanship or learn how to build a ship or run a computer store or build a company from the ground up or understand how my community is working, then what is going to be left when we're gone, right? And I think the United States is coming under a revitalization of that. And I think Ireland is in a big struggle right now. There are migrants and some illegal migrants coming into your country that are willing to do the work. They are willing to do the hard things that the youth and regular people don't want to do, right?
Why do you think that is the case? We'll talk about mindset off air. So from your perspective and your experience and your political analysis of everything, what has changed within the mindset of, let's say, we call them the Celtic Tiger, millennials,
yeah.
But say for the people under 40, no one's getting married and having children anymore.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford it.
Yeah.
But they don't want it anymore. They just want the Instagram lifestyle, the designer handbags and sunglasses and life. What has changed in the mindset and influence the younger generation?
And I think this is the difference between capitalism and socialism. We have a very soft socialistic society here, and we have much more of a capitalistic society. But there's not too many differences in the United States with the younger generations as well, right? But I work in the oil and gas industry. I'm a blue-collar worker. I grew up with hard hats and steel-toe boots and turning pipe wrenches, working 120 hours a week. That is unfathomable here in this country. When I was talking to some of the kids the last few days, like, what do you mean you used to work 120 hours a week? I work 36 or 45. I'm like, that gets to Wednesday for me. So the problem is one, it's a lack of ambition. And I think if there's a lack of hope in a society, right, then you can't possibly anticipate what you want to see beyond that, right? In the United States, if I don't like the way something's going on or I don't like this job, I can quit, move, and go to another state. But the United States is much bigger than Ireland. If I don't like what's going on in New York City, I can move to Texas, right? But in Ireland, you can't do that. Ireland is not that big.
No, it's tiny.
Right? So you have to stay where you are in your city and where you grew up, and you have to save it for yourself. If you don't like what's going on, then you need to change it yourself. you need to take the initiative to not Instagram influencing. Yeah, it sounds great and it'll work for some people. It doesn't work for everybody.
It's saturated.
It's oversaturated, right? But you need to go back to building the ship, so to speak, right? Not burning the boats, right? If you're not building and creating and giving something that your grandchildren or your children are going to look forward to, then what else is going to be left here for Ireland? It's going to be an empty country filled with other people that want to replace you. Right, and that was a different perspective I even got in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is a very affluent, rich, educational area. The royalty sends their kids up there to go to school. And for them, the migrants are doing all the jobs they don't want to do. Street sweeper, toilet cleaners, hospitality workers, everything else. Everyone else is working in government and politics, in the center of Scotland there. So for them, it's like, well, they're not affecting my political job. They're not affecting my assistant job or my office job. They're doing the jobs I don't want to do. Well, that's because it's a city center. Very similar to the elitist ideology in New York City or California or things like that. It's like these elitist societies think that they can exist and the migrants aren't having that much of an effect. But then you go out to places like Northern Ireland and Belfast, and then you go down to Dublin, or you go out to Glasgow, and you're seeing that it's a lack of ethical morality of wanting to actually do the hard work. Right?
We used to do that. The
Irish are famous. The Irish built New York City.
Yeah.
The Irish built the Holland Tunnel. They built the George Washington Bridge.
We built every road in England.
Exactly.
And Liverpool and everything.
The railroads in America.
And the railroads in America, right?
Rockefeller built every
it's not that there's a lack of genetic ability to do these
Yeah.
things. It's a lack of the transference of skills and the willingness to understand what meaningless and hard work. And I think a lot of that is also a loss, in my personal opinion, of Christianity, right? And I think Ireland is. I'm an Irish Catholic. My family is from County Clare down here, and the Irish Catholic mentality is you produce good things for God through hard work, right? You sacrifice your time and your treasure, whether it's raising a family or doing a job, to make children. Right, and to provide for a society collectively so that society works together towards a greater good of achieving the goal of heaven. I mean, that's the basis of Catholicism as much as you can get it. But I think that because there's a lack of faith and there's a lack of belief and they think they can just get whatever they want, they can order whatever they want on Amazon, that they don't need God, they don't need ethics, they don't need morals. And you're seeing what happens to an unethical, unmoral society is that it collapses on itself. And who is going to replace you? It's the people that still have those standpoints, and that might be the Hindus. It might be the Muslims. It might be other groups of people that still hold those foundational families that they're having children and they are willing to work for less wages and they're willing to do the hard things that you're not. And if you're not going to do those things for a society to exist, then they're going to replace you. And I think that's what I'm starting to see here during my travels in Ireland is that these younger immigrant families, which are very similar to how the Irish experienced their when they're after the Irish potato famine in New York City. They worked for nothing. They were treated like dirt. Same thing with the Italians and everyone else, right? But they literally built America. And they became some of the most powerful communities in the United States. And now you're seeing a lack of ambition here in Ireland in real time. But those other communities who come from other countries, some illegal, some not. Like some are coming here just fine. But they're willing to work for less wages.
A lot of people are coming for economic reasons,
right,
rather than anybody fleeing war. They're coming for economic migrants.
Because I promise you, there's more job opportunities here in Ireland, as many as you don't think there are, than there are in Syria. Right?
So, you talked about the Christianity, you talked about the boats, and you talked about, and you recently down here, I think it was in Dublin, that you met a fisherman. Paul and I on the Irish Politcal Roundup, we have been covering over the last 2 years now the Irish fishing crisis. Yes. So it'll be interesting to hear what you heard from a fisherman as well.
I mean, he worked at docks for 10 years. It was such a fascinating conversation. I just met him at a pub over a pint. Like, it was very random. I had just finished a big hike on the cliffs of Moher and came back. I was just trying to grab dinner. And he was telling me how they're losing their livelihoods.
Yes.
They're losing everything, what his grandfather and his father had taught him. And he's like, well, now I'm just going to go replace paving tiles and work on thatched roofs down the street in a neighboring town because there's no work here anymore. And the only time they have work is for tourism. Going out in the boats.
Tourism has gone down.
And tourism has gone down. But, the biggest thing that's going on, at least places I have been, is that, there's a tourism industry. It's very seasonal. But these small towns that have existed for hundreds of years are starting to disappear. and people are moving away and they're not having children and they're just leaving and they're going else for opportunities. So, like I said, it's the younger people, the millennials, you call them the tigers, I guess is what you said, right? It's up to you. It's up to you. Do you want to save your own country? Do you want to participate in your government? Do you want to replace your politicians and actually have that hard conversation? You all talk about being revolutionaries. You know what I mean? Whether it's the IRA or the UDF or the Loyalists versus the Nationalists. I mean, your fathers and great-grandfathers did it, and they instituted change, whether that was positive or negative. But what are you willing to do? Because this is where we are. You can talk about your history all you want, but you can't change what happened in the past. The only thing you can change is what's going to happen moving forward, right? And I think it's up to the Irish people to understand that the best thing that they can do is to create those real jobs and to create that real desire to hold on to their Irish culture and their Irish heritage.
How can we do that when we're fighting again? We're fighting to save it, like our fisheries. Europe, we can only now catch 15% of the fishing quota in the and we're an island in the Irish fish.
Yeah.
Where you have Iceland, you have even Norway, you have Belgium, who's not even a.
You have 85% of fish in our waters are caught by foreign boats, and you see situations where there's the Irish fisherman, he can only go for a couple of weeks or months a year, and then you see these foreign trawlers coming in and cleaning the place out, and no reason.
Yeah, they're coming into the shore, to the dock, and then they're being transported by lorry over to Dublin and on to Europe.
Yeah, and then they'll sell it to you for twice the price still.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And here's the problem is that's a perfect example of socialistic ideology and EU law reforms and being passed in Ireland and what another capitalistic country or capitalistic ideology is going to do. It's, like we say in the army, it's survival of the fittest, my fist is the biggest. If you're not going to fight for it, we're just going to take it from you. And that's what other countries are doing to you, is you have weak politicians and EU mandates and green energy policies that are complete nonsense, that you're saying, well, we only can catch 5% of the fish because we're going to save the orcas. Well, you're not, because China's just going to come in and take it anyway. They don't care, right? And you have to really elect politicians and leaders in your political sphere that are going to make the hard decisions to not only save your culture and save your industries and provide those jobs, but make common sense decisions, right? I mean, we've seen the effects of, even when I was out here in 2015 and they had the big wind energy movement out here when I was up at Oxford and I was studying at that, and they paid hundreds of millions of pounds to put these, I think the company was Clipper at the time, to install these giant wind turbines on the ocean. They were going to save Scotland and they were going to save Ireland. And then they all fell apart and got destroyed and aren't providing the electricity that the island actually needs. And then even back in the UK at the time in 2015, they were firing up old coal power plants because they couldn't produce enough electricity and energy for the island, right? Is that, do you want to default to worse policies that you've had to do in the early 1900s that actually did pollute your air? Or do you want to start using the natural gas? You've up here in the North Sea. That's plentiful. I almost took a job in Aberdeen at one time. I did. My
father worked in the North Sea.
I worked for Schlumberger at the time, and I was thinking about moving to Aberdeen and taking a drilling job, but then because of bad EU economic and energy policies, they collapsed all the yards out there, so I stayed in Texas after that. So the thing is, you have so many resources that have existed forever, right? And it's putting the right people into positions to make those decisions that are going to save your own population from destroying itself.
Isn't it crazy to think we gave away all our oil and gas?
Yeah, and Shell.
Shell.
Yeah, and off the west coast here.
Must be about 20 years ago.
Yeah. We sold them to Norway. What's a company in Norway?
Yeah, Statoil. Statoil is going to buy all of it.
Yeah.
You know why? And guess what? Norway's got more money. Right? And they're doing just fine for the most part. And they're also a socialistic society, right? But they have more availability. And a lot of their jobs are more higher paying. Right, and that's why you see the emigration, the movement of these people to those countries and to those places, is because they have more common sense approach to what's going to benefit their country the most.
So you're over here in Ireland. You've been here for 2 weeks, as you said. What's your view on how the Irish media portray your president, President Donald J. Trump, and the Trump administration? I
think they're afraid of him in a way. Because what they're seeing is that if the Irish people actually started to agree mostly with what the policies that Trump is instituting in the United States by force, not all the best policies, right? Whether it's cleaning up D.C. with the National Guard, right? Which is, I think, hilarious. As a former member of the National Guard, I can say that. Or, you know, we're going to clean up the streets of DC. We're going to make things safer. We're going to force all these tariffs onto these countries and start making them pay their fair share to stop being taken advantage of. Right? Is that I think there is a serious censorship problem here in the EU and in Ireland, and not getting out their accurate information because they want to push Trump off as this horrible dictator, blah 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 king. Well, some of you love having a monarchy, so I don't know what you're talking about. We fought a revolution against those people. We don't have to worry about that anymore, right? But there's this misconception of that Trump is a dictator when he's not. He's trying to work for what's best for the American people, and things are going great in America. No matter what the media tells you, my stock portfolio is way up. My job is going great. The Army, we have more funding than we ever did before in my 15 years of military service, right? So I'm not going to complain. But what the EU, I think, is afraid of is the people realizing that, oh, this is possible. If we elect a leader, a strong leader, who never even came from politics. President Trump never served in politics or did anything, and he's the president of the United States. I think that's a big signal warning to people in the EU, is that you don't need to elect people that have been in politics for 20 years to be your president or your prime minister. You can elect businessmen, community leaders that actually care about Irish culture and the Irish people to start taking over and making new policies. And I think the Irish media or the BBC or even some aspects of the American media, they don't want people to see that, right? Even when I was in Northern Ireland, I was walking around the streets in places I should not have been, right? Is that the Irish media and the BBC does not like to talk about that there are still peace walls dividing the Protestants and the Catholics in Belfast. That those gates close automatically every night and every morning and still separate these communities that are still have a tendency of throwing bombs or instituting violence against each other when the conditions are right. But that's not heard in America. I think everyone in America thinks that Ireland is this place of Kerrygold butter and everything's green and everything's nice and beautiful and Rosie O'Donnell's going to move out here and everything's going to be great.
Back?
Yeah, I don't want to take her back. You guys can keep her personally. But the thing is, like I said, it's what you see in the media and then what the reality is of it on the ground. And the Irish people have so much potential right now to do great things if they just want to work together like they have for hundreds of years before that.
So I'm going to ask you there, you say Irish people have, the Irish country has great potential. What potential do you see?
Honestly, the solution for the Irish people is so simple.
Uh-huh.
All they have to do is convince their politicians to drop all tariffs against the United States.
Okay.
If you had an agreement, just like Vietnam did, I believe, you tax 0% tariffs on the United States, Donald Trump's going to come back and immediately say, oh, you're going to get 0% tariffs. And then that's going to open up the floodgates for capitalistic investment into Ireland. And the biggest issue that I see now is everything is subsidies and funded. Even when I spent all my time in Belfast, one of the biggest issues I've seen is that, well, the reason they're still not shooting each other and blowing each other up is because they have the Irish, International Monetary Fund, right? They have the EU Peace Fund, and the United States also contributes to that because they provide just enough basic, boring, average-paying jobs and just enough housing and just enough benefits to all these community reintegration programs that it keeps the violence and the guns from shooting. But what if you provided an industry just like Belfast was back in the early 1900s? What if Apple built another factory and Google came over here? Or Caterpillar built another factory outside of Lorne, which is another area where you have a small American industry. All those companies will gladly come here if you dropped all the tariffs and didn't cost them any money. And now people are going to say, oh, the millionaires and billionaires are making money. Yes, but also so is everybody else. And you know what you get to do when a billionaire company is making 3 times the amount of money? You get to tax them even more, right? So the best way for the Irish people to rejuvenate their society is to work hand in hand with the United States and not work as an adversary. And yes, you're going to fight some people who have more socialistic ideology, but there's so much money that can flood into your country and so many good paying jobs that would come here if American companies believe that it's not a financial risk for them to move operations over here.
And manufacturing. Ireland used to be the manufacturing. I come from Derry, where it was a shirt factory, capital of the world. You had Harland and Wolff, the shipyard. So what was your message then to the ordinary people, the viewers, the voters now, to say to their local county councillors, their local TDs, their congressmen being American, to actually say to them what to do? Start getting them to know, because possibly we don't know how much tariffs the Irish government are putting on America. But they don't talk about that. They only talk about and they call it Trump
reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah,
the reciprocal tariffs. My message to everyone in Ireland is this: take responsibility for your own destiny, right? You need to go out there and you need to be the difference maker. And you need to make the decision whether your country is worth fighting for or not. I've decided that in America, my country is worth fighting for. Whether I decide to run for office, or whether I decide to go to my local community meetings, my mayoral meetings, county commissioner meetings, everything else. You have to show up. You can't just run away to Australia. You can't just complain about it in a pub. You can't just come on a podcast and complain about these things. You have to take civil action and participate in your own society. Because if you don't and it fails, the only people you have to blame is yourself.
Adam, what is your perspective of how, since you've been here, what you think how Irish people perceive your President Donald J. Trump?
I've seen a split in it. I've seen a lot of people love it because they think he's a revolutionary in their minds. And he's like, we need exactly somebody like Donald Trump to come into Ireland and clean things up. And then I've also seen a lot of people where, well, he's supporting Israel and he's a propagator of war. Well, I mean, no offense, but it's not like the Irish have much of an investment in Gaza and the Middle East just because your Irish Defence Forces don't do that type of mission, right? So I don't really care for that opinion, to be honest, because like I said, I'll take the opinions of people who've been there versus the people who have not, right? But I think Ireland needs a Donald Trump. I don't know who that person is in Ireland. I don't know who they are. But they need somebody to come in and break the bonds that have been restricting you from being a great country like you have been known to be for hundreds of years. And it's so simple. All you have to do is participate and show up. And that's also why I'm here on this podcast, is because sometimes you just need to show up and be honest and have these hard conversations, because if you don't, who else is going to?
A lot of people who said when we were talking about, Donald, the tariffs, and it's all, and I said to you, it's a distraction. Yeah. And we said to all the politicians we met, our American correspondent, Adam DeRito, told us, and we believe too, that the tariffs is a negotiation tool.
100%. Trump is the deal maker, or the deal. That's what he does. Because the problem with socialism is you think everything is a tax or a tariff or money this, and it's going to take money out of this fund and take away from public housing or public, health care or whatever else it is. Hey, you know what you have to do? Stop. All you have to do is reduce your tariffs. Cut your tariffs. Make an open free trade agreement with the United States. And you know how much money we're going to pump into your economy? Billions. But if you don't and you want to play that game, we'll let you strangle yourself. And then we'll go on to the next country that wants to work with us more. Because like I said, that's how capitalism works. It's who's going to make us the most money, who's going to benefit the American people the best. You have a choice. You can do it or not, right? And some countries have already, hey, zero tariffs. We're all for it, and things are going great. South Korea, Vietnam, all these other countries, right? But if you want to keep fighting us on because we should give you more money to, keep the peace here because you just want more free money, we'll fight you on it. We'll make things a little bit more difficult for you.
The Irish media are very anti-President Donald J. Trump and the Trump administration. Why do you think that is?
Because they don't know him. I've been to Mar-a-Lago 4 times. I've met most of the members of his family, except Melania and Donald personally, one-on-one. And I will tell you that he has a bombastic, grandiose attitude about himself, of course, on camera. But I will tell you, behind closed doors and when the cameras are off, the Trump family is one of the most American, honest, grandfatherly, really cares about our country. Every place I've been to that is a Donald Trump property, minus this one obviously because it's in Ireland, is covered in thousands of American flags. I don't see that anywhere else in the United States, right? He really cares. When he talks about helping the military and helping people, fix their lives and paying off people's mortgages, which he's done in the past. He is the definition of what all Americans want to strive to be, is a philanthropist, is somebody who's been successful, who's provided thousands of jobs, who can help their local Americans and help them out from the ground up, no matter where they came from, what religion they are, whatever else it is. And I think that if people in Ireland understood that, if the Irish media was honest about it, they'd all get fired. And I think that's what they're afraid of, is that they being removed from power under the concept of, hey, we can change this too, is terrifying to them.
And that's where the hegemony in the media comes in. Who controls the media controls the narrative.
Correct. And that's why I'm here, is because I think it's really important to understand what's going on the ground and understand what real people are saying. The fishermen, you know, the young kids in Belfast, the taxi drivers in Dublin, the workers in Glasgow, and even some of the hotel workers in Dublin. If I'm not talking to them, who really run society, who really makes places like this and Trump Doonbeg absolutely beautiful and amazing, and the service we've gotten here, then who else is going to? It's not your politicians. And it's not Donald Trump either, right? But it's the people like us that are making the difference in our societies that are really going to change where the future of Ireland is headed.
Because I remember we were chatting there a while ago, and you sent me something, Roisin, about what Donald Trump was going to do for the veterans.
Yes.
You know, it was a housing project. Absolutely phenomenal. No veteran would go homeless or anything like that.
Right.
Do you think that'll get any mention here in the Irish media? Absolutely
No,
not.
absolutely not. Right, and it's because oh my God, somebody's actually working for the veterans in the U.S. government. That's never happened really before. We talk about it a lot, but someone's actually doing it, and it takes money and it takes time and it takes bravery to say those things. But he's doing it, and I'm all here for it. You know, and that's why I support him. That's why I'm proud that he's my commander-in-chief. It's an honor to serve under him in the U.S. military. But also just as an oil and gas worker, as a regular blue-collar guy, is that, you know, I have an opportunity now in my life to make a difference for my future family and my future children, to live in a great society and hand off those skills and everything I've learned as an American. And I hope that I can do that with also my fellow constituents around the European continent as well, from France to Ireland and all the other places that I've traveled to.
We actually met, probably a colleague of yours, we were down in Cork at the National Rally. Kevin Purcell.
Yeah.
And he said that he was the guy that came up with the Gulf of America. He was surfing in the Gulf of America and came up with that.
Well, yeah, it's funny, but I mean, even just to mention Venezuela really quick, and I park a bunch of destroyers and a bunch of carriers outside of Venezuela, and they have a bunch of 1.4 million, peasant army with a bunch of, rusty rifles. You know who's going to win every time? The United States. Once again, it's a negotiation tactic. If you don't stop the drugs flowing in our cartels into Mexico, then we're going to blow you up. And I'm pretty sure not that we're actually going to do it, but when you see a bunch of naval ships parked out in the Gulf of America, you're probably going to go, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that.
And there's what is not getting out, the message out here in the Irish media and even politically or in Europe is that President Donald J. Trump is cleaning up not just Washington D.C. He's cleaning up the drug trafficking.
Yeah.
He's going for the drug cartels. He's cleaning up human trafficking and child trafficking.
And the only people who are opposed to that are the people that are financially benefiting that by corrupt non-government organizations or NGOs. Every other American is all for this. We love it. We love the fact that our border crossings, illegal immigrant crisis has gone down almost 99%. It's fantastic that hundreds of thousands of tons of drugs are being intercepted, that communities are starting to rebuild, that you're not getting as many American deaths from these things. And that's important. And yeah, there's people that are going to fight it because they like their free money and they like their socialistic ideology, because we have like a lot of the Democrats are like that in the United States. But you want to know what? It doesn't matter, because things are getting fixed in the United States. And like I said, you can't make everybody happy. If you can get at least 51% of people to agree with you, then that's real democracy.
And it's all about children at the end of the day.
It is.
And even if you take the things Robert Kennedy Jr. has been doing in the Department of Health, he's improving food standards. They're looking at bringing down the cost of medicines in the United States. And
bringing back physical fitness to a bunch of fat Americans, because we're the fattest people in the world.
And making America healthy again.
And I'm all for it, right? It's just, it's great to see these. It's hard forms. Not everyone's going to like it, but sometimes if you want to lose the weight and you want to be a faster run, you got to get on the treadmill.
Oh, I'm doing that. I mean? I'm doing it as we speak.
Yeah, no, it's just important, right? Yeah. It's just that we grew up as a society like this in the post-World War II era. We had a great focus on the family and fitness and faith. And we lost all that, right? And we're trying to get back to that. And I hope that in countries like Ireland and people around the EU realize that we could do this together. We don't have to fight each other, right?
And let's do that. Let's also make Ireland great again. I know that it's not politically correct to say that here in Ireland, but let's make Ireland great again. Let's make Ireland healthy again. And let's make Ireland financially successful, and let's bring our children back again, and let's make Ireland one of the great manufacturing countries in the world again, and bring back our linen, bring back our woolen industry, bring back our fishing industry. Am I missing Mullop Board?
Let's make guaranteed Irish actually mean
Yes.
something again.
Yes, I've been on a campaign with a lot of politicians that, about guaranteed Irish, buying Irish products. And Paul and I were up at the door, and Paul
We
noticed.
couldn't have planned it any better.
We couldn't have planned it any. And just, like I would say, 25 feet, less than 25 feet away from the gates of Dáil Éireann, there is number 20 Moseville Street,
yeah.
guaranteed Irish. But
Yeah.
they're not all promoting guaranteed by Irish products.
Right. And like I said, I think together we can fix this. It's just the Irish people and the young youth of the generation here needs to have pride in their country. And we can work hand in hand with this, not against each other.
Well, let's do that.
Thank you so much for letting me come on the podcast. It was so wonderful meeting you all in person.
Yeah. Well, Adam DeRito, thank you so much
You're
indeed
welcome.
for coming to Ireland and Doonbeg in County Clare to meet the Irish Political Roundup.
Thank you.
It's had a great meeting.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you to you, the viewers, for taking time to watch the Irish Political Roundup and Adam, your podcast as well.
Yep, Tuxes and Tomahawks podcast, and you can follow me on Instagram, adam.DeRito2010, and I'll see you there.
Goodbye for now.